It's a big weekend on the turf at Saratoga. Let's preview the Saratoga Oaks and the Sword Dancer. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets. Here with the preview of Saturday's Saratoga Oaks and Sword Dancer Stakes, the two graded stakes on the Saturday card at Saratoga. Now, before we get into this race preview, I want to encourage you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, weekly programs, and so much more. Right now, we have previews of Saturday's Arlington Million and Beverly D at Colonial Downs, as well as Saturday's cap in the card for all 12 races at Saratoga. But I thought we should dive deep into these two graded stakes races for this video. So before we get to that, want to tell you it's going to be beautiful weather on Saturday at Saratoga, fast and firm. So that's what everybody always asks the first question about. Should we be handicapping for weather? No. The only weather you should be handicapping for is nice weather. So going to be a really great day of racing, but let's dive in to the Saratoga Oaks Grade 2 going a mile and 3/16 for 3-year-old fillies. And this is a race I think that a lot of people are going to approach as a two-horse race. And I don't think they're necessarily wrong, between the morning line favorite Laurelin, who's undefeated for Grand Motion, and Opulent Restraint for Chad Brown. Now, they're separated by very little on the morning line. Chad Brown's horse, Opulent Restraint, 2-1 second choice. Part of that is because a really big effort last time out. Finished third by less than a length to Fiona and Nitrogen. Nitrogen, of course, has just been the dominant 3-year-old turf filly until that loss, and really showed a lot up on the front end under Joel Rosario. Picks up Flavian Pratt, though. Pratt hops back aboard this horse. This is an interesting horse. We'll talk a little bit more about Opulent Restraint in greater detail, but I don't think this horse needs the lead, and I don't even know if this horse is best on the lead, but the horse might inherit the lead. So we'll see. Laurelin, on the other hand, let's not bury the lead. This horse is undefeated and is coming into this race a perfect 4 for 4. Was a very precocious 2-year-old. Motion has managed this horse beautifully. Came back in the Memories of Silver Stakes, won with Kendrick aboard. Last time out, went down to Penn National, won the Pennsylvania Oaks, won the Penn Oaks over a yielding turf course that day. Horse has nice strategic speed, doesn't need to be in the lead, doesn't need to be a deep closer, more of a mid-pack tracking type. So, again, a lot of flexibility for Kendrick. 6-horse field, horse should be able to sit whatever trip the horse wants. So great to see Kendrick back aboard this one, who's been riding so well on the turf. Obviously, everybody remembering the rides he's given deterministic in both the Manhattan and the 4-Star Dave. But the interesting thing about this horse is her speed figures have not been overwhelming if you look at Beyer. Now, again, that's just one metric. It's not a defining metric by any stretch of the imagination. And here's the interesting thing, is if you look at that Penn Oaks race, she was assigned. I know a lot of people get very bothered by me saying she earned or was given. She was given an 80 Beyer speed figure. That should make everybody in the comment section very happy. But here's the thing. You look at the horse that ran second that day, Candy Quest, got a 77 Beyer that day, came back and ran in the Ontario Cotillion at Woodbine and got an 88 that day. So really improved. Reigning Flowers, who finished third in the Pennsylvania Oaks, came back to run third by a neck in the Lake George and was assigned an 89 Beyer speed figure. So really big perk up. So that race is coming back slow. And what I mean by that is the number that was given and assigned to these horses in the Penn Oaks appears to be outdone in their next race. Now, some of this is just natural progression for some of these horses and so on. But I think it's notable that you saw a big Beyer speed figure jump between the Penn Oaks and the subsequent race for the second and third place finishers. So that could indicate Laurelin is sitting on a much bigger effort than maybe the 80 Beyer speed figure, which is a career best, might indicate. Now, you juxtapose that with Opulent Restraint, who prior to that Belmont Oaks career best was an 80 in the Memories of Silver, where she lost to Laurelin by a neck that day with Irad Ortiz Jr. aboard. In the Belmont Oaks, the horse goes out to the lead and sets some pretty aggressive fractions going a mile and an eighth. Let me say that. The horse goes 46 3 to the half, 110 flat to the 3/4. On the turf at Saratoga, going 9 furlongs, that's flying. I don't mind. Joel Rosario was aboard that day, and Joel's usually really good up on the front end. Man, you don't want to ever, and far be it for me to kind of reverse course now, but you never want to choke a horse back too much. If a horse has speed, you want to let him have speed. I think too oftentimes we see jockeys take away a horse's best strategic advantage, which is to get out up on the front end to get comfortable. But maybe the horse went a little too fast, going a little too long in that race. Now you get Flavian aboard, who, again, very good on the turf, very good up on the front end. Remember winning with White Beam last year as well. So, Opulent Restraint, a horse that has won the 2 career starts coming from off the pace, actually. Broke its maiden sitting 4th in a 10-horse field, and then came back and won the Chelsea Flower sitting mid-pack in a 5-horse field. So that's the horse that the 2 wins have come from off the pace. Now, the last 2 times out, the horse just has naturally good speed and has inherited the lead and has kind of just lost out both times. Has shown a lot of courage, really fighting back. But again, it's just, I wonder if this horse is better if there's a target. Now, you have the inside rail. There's really not any other speed in this race. You maybe look at a horse like Totally Justified, might go out. But again, I think Opulent Restraint is probably faster. And so, again, you're going to be up there on the front end. I think the key with this one going 1 mile and 3/16 now is just divvying out those fractions maybe a little bit better. But obviously, you want to let the horse get comfortable. You don't want to take their best advantage away. But Opulent Restraint, listen, it was 19-1 last time. It's now 2-1. So you do have some questions. Was the last time the time to really use this horse? But Opulent Restraint certainly looks tough in this spot. Now, another horse that I think is tough is Go-Go Boots, making a first start in North America for Miguel Clement. I think the big question, though, is surface. Had been trained by John and Thaddy Gosden. Obviously, huge amount of respect for those connections. But the horse won in debut on synthetic and won second asking on synthetic. Then goes to the turf. Now, things get a lot tougher. Runs in a Group 3, a Group 1, and a Group 2. Runs in the Epsom Oaks, actually. Against Mini Hawk and Whirl and Desert Flower and some really nice horses, and finishes 9th that day. So the water got deeper for sure once this one switched onto the turf. Now it's actually cutting back a little bit, carrying a little bit less weight. First time in Miguel's barn. Miguel is on fire right now, winning 24% of his entries during the Saratoga meet. Jose Ortiz up. Again, another jockey that's riding incredibly well. I think Go-Go Boots is pretty live in this race. I think this could be an example of where everybody focuses on the top 2. And I think understandably so. And a horse like Go-Go Boots, owned by Bobby Flay, might just be able to get the job done in this race. And certainly is not going to have an issue with distance, having a lot of foundation there. I think you can explain away why this one hasn't won on the turf by just saying, listen, we're running in group stage races over in Europe. Just much, much tougher competition than what you're seeing here in the United States. I think this one could run a really big effort. The time form rating numbers aren't huge, which makes me think maybe there's, it'll be interesting to see how that translates over into this effort in the United States. But I think Go-Go Boots is 7-2. Interesting horse. Obviously, Totally Justified for Rusty Arnold. Didn't run well in that Belmont Oaks, but, tired a little bit here. Now we're going a little bit longer. The horse did run well in the Regret, but again, tired late, was overtaken by Fione. I do wonder if this one's best at a mile to some extent, though the horse broke its maiden at a mile and a 16th in the PG Johnson, actually, in a stakes race last year up at Saratoga. So, a nice horse, but I'm not sure this one's quite at the same caliber as everyone else. Manny Franco, always a jockey I have a lot of respect for, but, and Rusty's got a real nice, barn this year. He's got a couple of really nice horses. We saw a horse like Kilwin win a big race for him last week. But this one should have, great turf pedigree. Justify out of a Galileo mare. Justify has become quite the turf sire here in the United States. So a lot of, interesting runners in this race. Arnaud Delacroix's horse, Evershed, interesting horse, but I think switching off Lasix could be a little bit of a question there. But, Sigh No More, I think, is the other one I would say 8-1. Really take a look at this one maybe underneath. Won the Boiling Springs last time out at Monmouth. Would need to take a step forward for sure. But Brendan entering this horse, Irad Ortiz Jr. up, there are things to like about that. And I wouldn't be shocked if this horse moved forward. Third start in the form cycle after a long layoff, having started its career overseas. So I think Sigh No More, interesting horse to potentially consider coming off a victory last time out at a big price. Now let's go to the Sword Dancer. And this one is really interesting race because you got two Charlie Appleby horses coming over. Number one, El Cordobes, who's 4-1, as well as the number 5 Nation's Pride. Now, Nation's Pride, we're very well aware with the 6-year-old for Godolphin came over, obviously, has run a lot of big races here. Won a lot of big races up here. Won the Jockey Club Derby. Won the Saratoga Derby. Won the Arlington Million. Has won a lot of races in the United States. Won the Canadian International up at Woodbine. But, and then almost comes with the but, last time in North America, 9th in the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Goes back over to Maidan, actually. Well, that's where this one's been running, not in Europe. Been running there. Wins a grade 2 over there, then goes to the Dubai Turf and gets beaten pretty handily in an 11-horse field, finishes 10th, beaten by almost 6 lengths by Soul Russian Romantic Warrior and Maljum, who's a very nice horse too. I wonder if this one's best days are starting to be behind him. And I wonder if maybe just 22 career starts, 11 career victories, a very, very good horse, maybe has started to take the toll. That said, William Buick is flying over for the mount. That usually means the horse is live. But Charlie Appleby's not been automatic. Over the last 3 years at Saratoga, he's only 4 for 23. He's not winning at a huge rate right now. And he's 0 for 3 this year in North America. Now, he's entering his horses in the toughest races, so some leeway can be given. But there was a time when Charlie Appleby came over, he was winning at a 30+% rate. That's not happening anymore. I don't think he has quite the same type of monsters he used to have in his barn. And so as a result, I default to Miguel's horse, Farbridge, and a horse that I think it's just made all the difference in the world getting Joel Rosario aboard. This is a horse that Joel seems to just know how to ride really, really well. Rode this horse early in its career and then got back on this horse now when it came back to the Clement barn and after the United Nations last year at Monmouth. And the horse has tremendous versatility. If there's no pace, the horse can go to the front. Though if there is pace, the horse can track it. If there's a lot of pace, the horse can close from further back. So the horse has so much versatility. I think Miguel's got this one in great form. The race that really is impressive to me is the race 2 back in the Manhattan, which the horse lost going 1 mile and an eighth. That's not this horse's distance. And yet this horse ran a huge race, losing to Deterministic and Integration. Deterministic came back to win the 4-star Dave last week. So losing to Deterministic, not a bad thing at all. And then came back and just romped in the Bowling Green in terms of Farbridge. That was a very short field that day, but one easy and under wraps. But this one going this distance is so tough. And like Saratoga, and I just think is a horse that just looks to be in peak form right now, can sit a lot of different trips. I think just Miguel's got everything perfect with this one. Honestly, the other Appleby horse is the more interesting one to me. Also owned by Godolphin, El Cordobes. Interesting horse. Now, William Buick hops off of this one. Flavian Pratt takes over the mount because Buick's, of course, riding Nation's Pride. This one's coming off a win in the Princess of Wales Stakes last time out at Newmarket, which was a Group 2, and won that race pretty easy. It just seems like an ascending horse, a horse that's kind of moving in the right direction. Distance shouldn't be an issue. And it'll be interesting to see. This is a class test for sure, but I'd rather take a little bit of a swing on the other Appleby in this race than the primary Appleby, who's likely to get bet down from that 3-1 morning line. I think El Cordobes could float up a little bit, and I think that would be really interesting. It's hard to make a case for anybody outside of those three. You could look at a horse like Utah Beast for Ignacio Correas IV, a trainer I have a lot of respect for, Jose Ortiz, a jockey who's riding so well, and go, hey, listen, this horse won the Louisville, this horse won the Acorn, or the Elkhorn, I should say, 2 and 3 back. Didn't run that well in the Churleywood, but also didn't have the greatest trip that day. So now we're picking Jose up, and I think, Jose's won before on this horse, going back to some races at Gulfstream Park. More of a deep closer. I don't always love that running style in these turf marathons, but obviously the horse can make it work. Has never run at Saratoga. Very good at this distance. A horse I like a lot. This was a horse that was actually my long shot of the day back in April 2024. And the horse was 8-1 morning line. And I said, oh, that's amazing. The horse went off as the 5-2 favorite and won by 4.5 lengths. So yes, I picked the right horse. just didn't get the right price. So Utah Beach is a horse I've always had a fondness for because I just remembered the horse since that race, and I've clocked this horse's career. But I do wonder at this level if we're quite good enough here. Beaten horses like Verstappen and Missed the Cut, who are nice runners, limited liability, Anglophile, so has beaten nice horses. Again, I just worry about taking a Saratoga, maybe the pace a little bit, coming from well off the pace, things like that. Though closing on this turf course has not been an issue. That inner speed bias has really disappeared that we've seen, but there's just very, very little pace that's going to be here up front. And I wouldn't be shocked if Farbridge and Joel takes the initiative and goes straight to the front. The only other horse I'll mention is El Rezeen, 15-1. I like this horse. I know finished second over a yielding turf course last time out to Farbridge, very short field, but I still like this horse and lost to a horse named Hershey, who I really like a lot, two back, and beat a horse like Intellect, who ran so well in its next start, actually in that 4-star Dave, if I'm not mistaken. And so, I thought, man, this is a horse that might be on the up and up. Dylan Davis stays aboard, having ridden this horse last time. And by the way, Dylan rode this horse the only 2 times this horse has won. Irad was aboard, but Dylan's gotten the 2 victories with this one, admittedly against slightly easier company, Maiden and Allowance Company. But nevertheless, El Rezeen at 15-1, that's a horse I'm interested in because I'm not sure Grand Sonata runs, because Grand Sonata might run down at Colonial, and Todd might not run his 2 against each other. And so it makes sense maybe to send Grand Sonata down there. El Rezeen at 15-1, that's a horse. I'm not sure that horse is good enough to win, but should be able to sit kind of a mid-pack trip, might have a little bit of, tactical speed within the context of this race and sit, 4th or something like that. And I like this horse in exactas trifectas. I would absolutely include this horse. I think this horse is going to run a big race. The way I see it, I have it 6-1, 7-5. So I'm actually kind of really fading Nation's Pride, and that's going to be kind of my stance I take. That horse is not going to be on my tickets. I'll probably use Farbridge. Maybe I, kind of am a little defensive with the second Appleby horse, El Cordobes, who I'm a little higher on. But listen, it's going to be a great race. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be wonderful weather, so you definitely want to make sure to come up to the track if you're in the area. But if you're not, make sure to play on NYRA Bets. We got a great promotion on Saturday. Let me finish by saying that $10,000 hit and split. I mean, you can't beat it. $10,000 hit and split. So that is going to be a great promo on the late pick 5. Opt in on NYRA Bets. If you play the pick 5 and you opt in and you hit the late pick 5, you split an extra $10,000 with everybody else who opts in and plays and hits it. So listen, sometimes it adds a couple $100 to your winning ticket. Sometimes it adds a couple $1,000 to your winning ticket because, hey, if you zig where everybody else zags, there might not be many other people who hit that late pick 5 and opted in. So, like I said, it's a great promotion, so make sure to play it on NYRA Bets. All right, folks. Well, appreciate everybody tuning in to this preview of the Saratoga Oaks and the Sword Dancer. Want to remind you to press that like and subscribe button today. My name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great, prosperous day at the races, and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.